Here is an electric water heater, and I want to show you how to adjust the temperature of your water in the electric water heater. It's going to start off by we have to remove both of these covers on the water heater. In an electric water heater, we have two elements in a water heater. We have an upper and we have a lower. And because of those, there's two thermostats. So when we're going to change the water temperature in an electric water heater, we have to do it in two locations. So we've pulled the covers off. We're going to pull these wires out of the way, and I'm going to pull this foam off of here. And this shows us what we need to see. Inside here, we have these little white dials that actually show us where our water temperature needs to be. And there are some electrical components behind this plastic cover. You don't need to remove the plastic cover in order to adjust the temperature, but for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna remove the plastic cover so you can see what you're doing there. And it says very clearly on here, turn power off before servicing. So if you are gonna be removing the plastic cover, you do want to turn the breaker off to the heater so that you don't get zapped. Now that the cover is off, you can see some extra workings and everything else, but the only thing you need to be focusing on is this little white dial right here. This dial is not highly accurate, it's more of a reference point, but you can see that the arrow is pointing over to 120 degrees. And if I were to put a flathead screwdriver in the white dial and turn it, I can turn it up to 140 degrees, or I could even, like this model, goes all the way up to 150 degrees. 140 and 150 is incredibly dangerous. You shouldn't need to be that high. Some restaurants or some medical situations might require that kind of temperature, but for most residential applications, 120 to 130 is going to be perfectly fine. But we also need to do the same down below. Before we look at the lower element, I do want to show you that this dial can actually go down that low before it hits to a stop. Again, they don't really give you a reference of what that is, but that's probably 100 to 110 degrees, somewhere around there. And keep in mind, these temperatures are approximates with an electric water heater. They're giving you some reference points, but just because we have it set here doesn't mean it's going to produce 120 degree water. It's a combination of using your temperature gauge at the faucet, your thermometer, and messing with this dial to kind of see what you get. You can't adjust this temperature and then immediately go to the faucet and see a change. You adjust this temperature and then within an hour, you can go to the faucet and see a change in the temperature. It takes a while for the water heater to get the water in the tank to the new temperature. Let's put this cover back on and we're gonna make sure that the bottom element is at 120 as well. So again, power is off to the heater. We're pulling this cover off. This thermostat is actually cranked all the way up to like 150. So we want to back that one down to 120. As we referenced before, there's another video out there that shows you why I have these two different kinds of water heaters in my house. This water heater is actually not hooked up to electricity. I'm using this electric water heater just as a storage tank, but it allows us to show you what's going on in the heater. Now that we've made our adjustments here, I'm gonna put our insulation back on and then I'm gonna put the covers back on. Typically this insulation is not cut loose like this. Typically you have to fight it and kind of pull it up and out of your way. I always cut it loose just to make it easier to get out of the way. This insulation is among one of the most important parts of this heater, and I'll explain why here. This thermostat, the reason it's not highly accurate is because it's just sitting on the surface of the actual metal tank inside there. And so when we put insulation behind the thermostat, now that thermostat can get a fairly accurate reading between the insulation and the tank. If we forget to put this insulation in there, then this air cavity gets cool. The thermostat sees the cooler air and it doesn't know that the insulation's not on there. And so the thermostat cools off and says, oh, we've gotten cold, we need to heat the water. And so forgetting to put this insulation on there can actually make your tank overheat. So we want to make sure that the insulation always goes back on. While I'm tightening this up, I will take the opportunity to also showcase another video that we've done that people seem to like really well. We have a whole video for how to diagnose your electric water heater. There's a red reset button up at the top that may be popping out on you. If you click up in the upper corner of this video right now, you'll see a link to that video where we go through how to diagnose electric water heaters and how to test the elements and all of that kind of stuff. So